Yeah, write it down. All right, welcome everyone to the Berryessa Citizens Advisory Council. People always tell us they never heard of us, and we've been here for 50 years. So anyway, we have to say that name a little more often. All right, tonight in honor of recognizing 9/11 that happened, I think, 22 years ago. We have the Boy Scouts from St. Victor's area school, and they're going to bring the colors up and play I forgot what you call it, the song, God Bless America. What song are you playing? I forgot. What? The national anthem. I knew it had to be something. Okay. And then we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we'll go from there. All right? All right. If everybody's ready. Thank you. Oh, my name's Linda Locke, by the way, in case you don't know who I am. And we'll bring the boys forward. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the presentation of the colors. Remain standing for the national anthem. meeting was sent out electronically just a few days ago, I do believe. So if anybody had any questions, additions, concerns, raise your hand. If seeing none, then we will accept the minutes as sent out. And our treasurer's report, Susan. I should thank the Boy Scouts before they probably left. I told them they could have cookies. That was really nice. I thought they did a wonderful job.
I know, that's a hard act to follow. So I have the treasurer's report that'll cover June, July, and August of 2023. So on June 1st, 2023, we had a beginning balance of $3,011.43. So we had income of membership dues of $20, a sponsorship from Assemblyman Alex Lee in the amount of $500. We had a lot of expenses: UNSCC membership renewal, $200, City of San Jose facility rental for the August 26th event, $137.50, printing of the BCAC notepads, $425.88, food, beverage, and raffle prizes, $326.79, UNSCC special event insurance, $126, and the UNSCC 501c3 certification fee for BCAC was $5. So the ending balance on August 31st was $2,310.26. We have a City of San Jose District 4 grant that has a balance of $7,038. We were awarded the Beautify San Jose grant, Cycle 5, and we'll be using that for more park improvements. That balance is $5,000. In the Not a Noble Charter, we have a balance of $7,456.96. Thank you.
All right, we have some law enforcement here tonight. I don't see Captain Sanchez. We're going to have to get on him a little more. From the Sheriff's Department, the report will be from Lieutenant Moore. You may come up.
I have not been to this meeting yet, so my name is Brent Moore. I'm a lieutenant with the Sheriff's Department. I am what we call the watch commander out on patrol. I'm the only watch commander for the Sheriff's Office right now. I'll explain a little bit more about that in a second, but what that means is that I am the #1 ranking person after hours for the Sheriff's Department on patrol, for all of patrol. And that includes Transit Division, South County all the way to Casa de Fruta, West Valley all the way to Los Altos Hills. So I am getting some help. That's the good news. There's 2 more watch commanders coming soon. One of them I wanted to bring him here, but unfortunately he hasn't started his assignment yet. But if you guys want to make special note, his name is Lieutenant Dustin Davis. Side note, he's one of my training officers when I was going through the training program. So he's been around for a little bit. He's a really good guy, and I think he'll be a great addition to what we call headquarters patrol area, which is where you guys are located here. So if I look familiar to any of you, I used to be the rural crime deputy. I used to patrol the Mount Hamilton Range. In addition to the Mount Hamilton Range, I spent a lot of time on Sierra Road and Felter and those areas out there at the foothills as well. So anyways, nice to meet you all. So this area, the foothills, is considered our Edward 1E1 beat. I pulled some stats for the last couple of months just to kind of see what the calls for service that ended a report, what the majority of those were. Good news is there weren't that many reports taken from your areas of jurisdiction in the Sheriff's Department's jurisdiction. And does anybody here live in the county jurisdiction of this area? Okay, a couple. Thank you for being here today. But that doesn't mean that we don't, roll through the areas of the incorporated city as well on a regular basis, right? Just getting from one point to another, knowing where the jurisdictional boundaries are in the sheriff's department versus where the city starts and where the county starts that's difficult in itself. So when I ran the numbers, it looks like there was, for the last couple of months, there was one vehicle burglary at the Ed Levin Park. That was actually a park ranger who took that report. It was within the park's purview. I believe in that case, there was like credit cards laying around and this sort of thing. So please, when your vehicles are left unattended, be mindful of dash cameras, obviously wallets and purses, any type of a bag. We're seeing a big increase in burglaries of vehicles where there's something exposed, and unfortunately it's way too easy for someone just to break the window out, grab that bag. There might be gym clothes in there, but they don't know. And that was the case on this one at the burglary in Ed Levin Park, was that there were credit cards and stuff stolen from the vehicle. We've had a couple of trespassing calls. This was on Sierra Road. One of the subjects was cited for trespassing, and the most significant collection of reports taken were 3 stolen vehicles that were found off of Sierra Road and the adjacent little side streets, I think Skyview and Camelot. But those are found stolen vehicles, meaning they were stolen from someplace else, and that's where they dump them. We have the same kind of a familiar problem over in the reservoirs. A lot of the stolen cars get dumped in the reservoirs too, unfortunately. I know I was a dive team member. I used to have to go swim and get those and help pull them out of there. But I guess better to have the vehicle dumped in your jurisdiction than have it stolen from your jurisdiction. But that's what's going on in the Sierra, Calaveras areas, a lot of dumped stolen cars. So I spoke just yesterday with one of the deputies who works that beat, and he tells me he tries to make it up there every single night on Sierra Road to chase the parkers. As we all know, Sierra Road is one of those lookout destinations where people park. I was on last night. I work nights, and calls for service didn't allow us to get up there last night. But generally speaking, he tries to, when he can, do the calls for service, he tries to get up there and chase the people away every night. And sometimes we'll put some reserves out there as well. So that looks like the majority of the issues that I'm seeing here. But I am more than happy to answer whatever questions you guys may have. Yes, ma'am. In what specific area? On Sierra Road? Same location over by the eucalyptus groves? Okay. 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 I'll let the deputies know that as well, that patrol the area. What would the best tool for us for the longest time was using our helicopter. It probably didn't make you all happy to hear the helicopter up there all the time. To their side note, right? There's one solution causes another problem maybe. But we used to send our helicopter up there and chase everybody off the hill, and then we get everybody moved along. We're currently in the process of trying to get a sheriff's helicopter pilot, and it has not been easy for us. So that's why you haven't seen the helicopter as much as previous times. But we are continuing to work on getting a helicopter pilot as well. But we'll still send deputies up there when we can. A lot of times you're probably asleep when we're up there rolling through. I've heard from community members that they never see the deputies up there, and it's like, well, they're going up there, but they might be going up there at like 12 o'clock in the morning or 1 o'clock in the morning when the calls for service in the valley are slowed down a little bit. We're like everybody else at CHP as well, I'm sure. We're all short-staffed. We're doing our best to hire people as best as we can. We're having a hard time hiring, just like every agency in California these days. But we'll do the best with what we can with the resources, and we'll try to send them up there best that we can to chase people out. I don't like the parkers. When I worked the Mount Hamilton car, I used to love going up there and chasing people because, if they're parked in front of a sign that says no parking, for an officer, that's your probable cause to stop the car. It's right there. Unless they're having some type of a vehicle emergency or something, they're not supposed to be there. So anyways, that's kind of how we handle those types of calls. So, yes, sir. You know, the hardest thing that we're having right now, I was in special operations for about 5 years, and I was in charge of the helicopter, so I have a little bit of an insight. It's been a while. I have a little bit of an insight. I think it'd be great if we could find somebody with military, flight time, that sort of thing. It's more of the experience level, the amount of flight hours that they have to have, and I don't know what that number is, but they have to have a pretty good number of flight hours. Then they have to be able to pass the background check. Unfortunately, we've had some people that didn't pass the background check, and we start all over the process again. So absolutely, that was one of my things. I'd really like to be able to put it out to military pilots. Sounds like a great progression. Oh, 100%, 100%. I think it'd be fantastic. Yeah, but I don't have a hand in the hiring for the helicopter, anymore. But at the same time, absolutely, that would be a great. And that's what I recommended, is that we could maybe go to recruiting stations where people have put in their papers to where they're going to be discharged soon, and just say, hey, Sheriff's Department's looking for a pilot. Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, thank you. Yes, ma'am. Yes. Mhm. Thank you. Yeah, so, yep, I did spend a lot of time. I love that area. For me, what was hard was the backside of Mount Hamilton. I won't bore you with that, but when you don't have a partner CHP officers will tell you the same thing. They have a long ways to go to get help sometimes. Sierra Road, the east side for us, our east side deputies can be there pretty fast. So it is unfilled due to vacancies, due to not being able to have enough bodies. But we are going to staff it again soon. I just talked to the captain today. So the plan is to staff that position. I'm not so sure. I don't know if it'll be a steadily rural crime position like mine was, or if it'll be more of a deputy kind of assigned to patrol those areas. But either way, we'll send a deputy from central, division, like down, more downtown San Jose area, pretty easy to send bodies over to get people over there. We only have about 3 to 4 people, usually 3, at most 4. So you can imagine, one call for service. Our guys are on a domestic violence call right now. That's gonna wipe out a lot of our deputies on a domestic violence call. You've got maybe multiple suspects. So when the calls for service are busy, it's hard for them to make their way up there to patrol the area. But again, they'll get up there when they can. Sure. Yes, sir. Good question. It's hard to find people who want to do law enforcement like they used to do. We just had the little remembrance there of 9/11, and when I started, it was after September 11, 2001. It was shortly after that, and there was a real different feel. This country was really brought together, and we were really thankful for all of the first responders, and we made note of it. I remember when I was going through the academy, I saw a bumper sticker on a car, and it said, "Thank you to law enforcement." I ain't seen a bumper sticker like that in a long time. Just haven't. So, we're trying to win back the trust of the communities, and we do that by having events like this, right? By meeting you guys and talking to you, letting us know they work human as well. But as far as the number of people putting in for the wanting to do the job, the numbers have gone down. But we're working really hard to get those numbers up as an office. We've got a lot of vacancies. I don't know what the number is currently, but we have a lot, and we're trying very hard. But all the law enforcement agencies are not fighting amongst each other for the recruits, but it really is comes down to it's not just pay. I wish it was that easy, but it's not just pay. It's just people having an interest in wanting to do this line of work. But let's stay positive, and we'll say that that's going to turn around. And we're thankful for the people that we have working for us. Yeah. Well, we appreciate that. Thank you so much. Yes, ma'am. I 100% agree. Yeah, thank you. Oh, thank you. Well, don't hesitate to call, you know, I mean, just because we're busy, that's not your guys' fault, and we will get to things. It's just, you know, if I'm just being truthful, if there's a parking complaint, you know, there's a bunch of people parked, but there's a domestic violence case going on, I mean, we have to take care of that first, and then we'll get over it as soon as we can. But then again, it's, you know, we do pretty good with the resources that we have. The CHP, I don't want to step onto their territory with traffic stuff. They're the pros. They are the traffic experts. But we can help when we can. Recently, we've parked some cars over where we've had some additional problems in the area of like McKee and Alum Rock where they meet towards the top. We've had some real problems with racers and speeders and stuff in that area. We just recently went to another community meeting there. So when we put our resources, you know, we try to get some extra bodies there, then it's someplace else where they're a little bit lacking, and we're trying to do our best to shuttle our resources around so we cover everything. But don't hesitate to call. I mean, you can call the non-emergency number, and I urge you guys, if you are in sheriff's jurisdiction, you have the 299-2311 number. You can call the non-emergency line. It's the same dispatchers that answer the phone when you call 911 if you're in our jurisdiction. So don't hesitate to call that number if it's something like a parking complaint. But you can also call 911 if there's other nefarious activities going on associated to the parking. They're committing damage, they're spray painting something, whatever, breaking bottles, whatever it may be. And we go up there on a routine basis and chase people off that hill. Sometimes they go to jail, sometimes there's a stolen car, that sort of thing, but we don't know until we get up there, right? Could just be teenagers hanging out. Yeah, we don't know. Thank you. Thank you.
Don't forget, we have a guest speaker tonight. Our CHP is represented tonight by Captain Christian Oliver.
Good evening. I apologize I was not here last month. I don't know if I'm supposed to share this or not, but it's the first time I ever got COVID. I feel like I got lucky. Who's had COVID? You don't have to share if you don't want to. Okay, well, I felt like, oh, I must have some super blood in me because I haven't had it. And then all of a sudden, I was down and out. So apologize for not making it, but I had a good excuse. But what I wanted to talk to you about was the successes that we've had in the past month. Currently, the CHP San Jose area is number 4 in the state for overall enforcement. And what that means for you is more enforcement in the areas of your concern. So yes, primarily this enforcement's taking place on the freeways. We have 8 major freeways here that we're responsible for: 101, 680, 280, 85, 87, keep going, keep going, keep going. And then there are the communities that we're also responsible for. So we team a lot with the Sheriff's Department, but for your community specifically, we've had a 32% increase in parking citations just in the Berryessa community. We had 3 arrests. So of those people that are parking, or the people that are on the side of the road looking at the sunset or just hanging out, we found them to be under the influence. What are their stats? And our citations increased significantly as well, where we issued 41 just in the Berryessa community. So those are good numbers. Overall, for the whole area, we're up 470% on seatbelt citations. So again, don't admit it, but who doesn't wear their seatbelt? Don't admit it, okay? So what we're out there to do, what the CHP is out there to do, is to try to save lives. Hopefully people are driving, their driving behavior's great, and they're taking the proper procedures, but when they're not, hopefully we're there to save their life. And we do that through enforcement, through talks like this, community engagement, or sometimes it's a warning. So when people don't wear their seatbelts, when they drink and drive, when they speed, those are all the leading causes of fatal and injury crashes. So we've reduced the amount of injury crashes through enforcement, through education, through engagement, and there are some engineering fixes as well. So I'm proud of the work that we're doing. We still have a long ways to go, especially in this community here. Has anybody met Officer Torres, who has been responsible for patrolling the area? No? Okay. Well, Officer Torres is the one that's been responsible for most of those statistics. Is anybody aware that the CHP has gone into the city of San Francisco for extra law enforcement? And what neighborhood are they going into? Tenderloin. Okay, so as we've been asked by the governor to go into places like the Tenderloin, to potentially go into different parts of the state or Bay Area, it takes away from some of our resources here in the area as well, because as they go, we fill in. So we've been doing that a little bit, so you probably haven't seen Officer Torres as much as his schedule allows, because he is being deployed, or we are being deployed to different areas, and he takes part of the freeway. But we're keeping Berryessa and other unincorporated communities as a priority with what we have. So the good news is that we have 7 new officers that just started today. That's great. Bad news is that we have 7 officers that are leaving in the next 2 months. So they're coming on and they're getting trained by another partner officer, so they're basically just one person. So those are some of the challenges that we face. And Lieutenant had mentioned the staffing shortages. I've said this before a couple months ago, the CHP is down 1,000 officers, and that's a lot. But for a statewide organization, that's something that we can overcome. And what we're supposed to be doing is going out and recruiting. So 40% of everybody that's on the CHP knew a CHP officer, and I would guess that it's the same thing in the Sheriff's Department. We want to hire good people. We go to community engagements to say, hey, you have a problem in your neighborhoods with speed, with breaking in, with homelessness, whatever it may be. And then you say, I know somebody who would make a great peace officer that could help you out. I'm willing to take your business cards to follow up with you. I know that I'm responsible to report what we're doing, but I'm looking to see if I can get the community support by encouraging the young men and women to join the CHP. I know that the sheriffs have been responsible for a lot of the law enforcement engagements, but they've reached challenges where during COVID, the courts were closed, and that allowed officers or deputies to be out on the road. Well, now that courts are back open, and this has been over the past couple of years, they're having to be at all places all at once. So I know you're frustrated with some of the progress, but I've seen a tremendous amount of progress by law enforcement and CHP. We're looking to increase that. We always want to see smiling faces. We always want to see that we're doing a great job. But ultimately, I know we can do better, and that's what I'm accountable for, and that's why I get up here. So with that, give me what you got. Good, bad, or indifferent. It's a absolutely. So absolutely, and I'm proud to say that I just joined the De Anza Community College Administration of Justice Advisory Board. I'll be serving with Under Sheriff Bender and myself and a few other police chiefs from the Santa Clara County. The challenges that they're facing, as Lieutenant had expressed, is there aren't too many people interested in being in law enforcement. I have to change that, and that's going to be through my actions. That's going to be through the work that is done by the CHP. But the successes that they are having in the criminology is what TV show has been popular to make the science and forensics popular? CSI, okay? So just in the 70s and 80s when the CHP was just, we couldn't get enough great candidates, why do you think that was? Chips, Punch and John, right? Okay, and then there's a Hawaii Five. So believe it or not, popular culture, people go try to imitate that. So De Anza, Foothill College are having a very successful criminology forensic program, but they're looking to put a shot in the arm in regards to the work that we do here. All you have to have on the CHP is a high school diploma. Hopefully there's more than that. I mean, there's quite a rigorous testing, but ultimately, you have good intentions, you don't have a record, you have a high school diploma, you're a qualified applicant. I think that meets most men and women between the ages of 21 and 35 years old for us. But we have to do more as showing what we do. And if popular opinion says, oh, all cops are bad, or they just do this or do that, we have to be the ones that sway public opinion by the work that we do. We're saving lives every day. We're trying to address many issues.
That's why I'm not planning to stop right now.
So we started a recruiting program in the San Jose area. And again, I'm not the smartest guy. So I used the information from people that are passionate about this. One of our officers is a military reserve. So we've now gone around to the military reserve and said, hey, can we do a presentation? Can we talk about life after the military? Or if you're a reservist, you're coming in 1 weekend a month, how about for your regular job? And those are the type of men and women that we're looking for. I'm getting the cane, but I'll be back there for a while.
But that's why we have the law enforcement come, so that we can get acquainted and we feel comfortable being able to talk and ask questions and that kind of stuff. So, did I see the police department come in, Representative? All right, come on up. I can't see that far away, so I'll let you introduce yourself. Thanks for coming tonight.
Hi, my name is Lieutenant Brett Hatzenbuehler. I'm San Jose PD, obviously. I'm here representing Captain Brandon Sanchez. He sent me over with some information regarding the east side and statistics for you guys, and then I too will answer any questions you guys may or may not have for me. Real quickly, I know some of the hot topics, obviously traffic, burglaries, and then assaults. Let me pull up some stats real quick. Regarding traffic accidents, Captain Sanchez wanted me to pass on to you guys and let you know that our motors unit has been aware and notified of the certain traffic accidents. Most of them are occurring on major roadways, major intersections. There are a few happening within residential neighborhoods. The majority of those, going through all the stats, have been no injuries, just usually property damage only to vehicles. So our motors unit is aware. You guys are probably seeing them more as of recent, driving around the major roadways and intersections. So please slow down, don't get a ticket. Burglaries, I know burglaries is a hot topic. He was talking about, we did stop a car yesterday. They were responsible. There are 5 juveniles in the car. They were responsible for 60 burglaries 2 days ago. A flock camera system. When we do get information, we put it in a program called Flock. Most of you guys are probably familiar with the Flock system. I'll talk more about Flock in a second, but we put it into Flock, and from there, if we get hits on these certain vehicles that we enter into the system, we can go after them and try to look for them. Anyhow, we entered a vehicle that was responsible for over 60 burglaries throughout the city of San Jose, some being up from this area, this neighborhood division, and our helicopter picked it up as it went through a traffic light, and 5 juveniles ran from the car. We got 4 of the 5, so we know who they are. So we solved 60 burglaries essentially throughout the city, and that affected all districts, including this one. Now, and we do know who the fifth one is. We're getting him next. So regarding the flock system, if you guys aren't aware of it, we're putting in cameras. We're installing them throughout the city. And what the flock program essentially does is a license plate reader at different locations and intersections. So when a crime happens, when a robbery happens, when any sort of crime that meets the criteria, we'll essentially enter it into a database. And then as cars drive through intersections, it's reading plates. And if that, we're not storing it and keeping your guys' personal information. That's not it. It's just basically checking the system that if it gets a hit, if it doesn't get a hit, we're getting rid of the information. So it's not being stored. But if we get a hit, it's broadcasting it to all the officers that are working. We have it, the sheriff has it, the CHP has it. Everybody's coordinated and tied into the systems. Morgan Hill PD has it. In fact, we just used them on a case to, there was some stuff going on between San Jose and Morgan Hill, and we were able to work together to find some guys that were breaking into cars, and we linked the two systems together. But with that said, we have much better response times as far as the more serious or violent crimes go and the more serious property crimes. It's a great system for you guys. And basically, we're getting flock hits. They're coming in within about a minute, minute and a half delay. Sometimes they're even coming in within 30 seconds. We're getting the hits actually pretty quickly. And the officers are doing a great job posting up at major intersections. And as soon as we get a hit, guys are just posting, waiting, and picking up the cars. I can't tell you how many hundreds and hundreds of cars in the last couple months we've picked up. A lot of stolen vehicles, a lot of robbery suspects. It's an amazing system. It works great. We're adding cameras every week. And something I just learned on the system too is associations, neighborhoods are actually buying their own flock software and cameras and actually introducing it into the system, and they're funding it. I don't know of any San Jose guys doing it or neighborhoods doing it. I do know Morgan Hill just added it. So I was actually kind of looking into that, like how associations can buy a system and then introduce it to San Jose. With cameras, with talking regarding flock and camera systems, if you guys have camera systems at your house, please register them with our department database. So, because if we get a crime, we know what houses we can go to, and then we can enter it into a system like this. Or we can come to you guys if we know a crime has occurred within the neighborhood. It really helps us do our job, so please help us. Cameras have been a great tool for us, and you guys can go on to our San Jose PD's website, and you're just registering the fact that you have a camera system. We're not tapping into your guys' system, so please register your cameras with us. That just lets us come knock and talk at your house and go, hey, can you review your footage? Did you see anything that may or may not have occurred at your house? Traffic, burglaries, we got the 459s. A couple quick stats I'll read to you guys for just regarding your neighborhood up here, and we'll call it Northeast San Jose within your guys' district, and we're using 101 as like the eastern or the western border, Milpitas as the northern border. I kind of went down past McKee a little bit to grab a few more stats on this side, and then obviously over to the foothills. So your guys' numbers actually are relatively low. Burglaries, we're only at, now this is reported, obviously some stuff does go unreported. I only have, you're looking at about 26 burglaries total, but about half of those are going to be commercial burglaries. So that's going to be where people actually went into businesses and they stole from a business, a store, and they reported it. So those aren't residential. Concerning you guys, the big one, residential burglaries, was 7. So now I know that's a number, but geographically, that's a relatively large area and a fairly low number. So I'd be very happy if I currently lived in this neighborhood and that's all I had. Your thefts, there are some thefts. The thefts are up, but most of those are commercial. So most of those are gonna be business related, not personal related. Robberies, there was only 2 robberies. And I pulled these stats for the last 30 days. So I'm not quite sure when your guys' last meeting was, but this is for the stats for the last month. But this is a pretty good snapshot of what you guys have had for summer. I'm pleased. I'm the swing shift lieutenant out here, and it is relatively really quiet up here. I spend more time down south, down past Story and King and down in that area. So I mean, that's good for you guys in this neighborhood. We do make sure our officers are getting up here through patrols, and we're still coming through. So we've been trying to be as visible as we can. On average, staffing, I know the captain CHP talked about staffing levels. Currently, I only have 5 guys over here. If one calls in sick, I got 4. So if a major incident does kick off, we only have 4 people. Now we can, on priority events, pull people from other parts of the city. We can lean on the sheriff's department or the CHP for assistance. But like they said, I know because there'll be a couple questions, we're running short-staffed as well. I think one thing we've done better in the last 2 years is we work together better because those numbers are getting short-staffed. So there is a good collaboration between us and the sheriff's department and the CHP between all the roadways, because you guys really have a mixed area of incorporated, unincorporated, and highways going through your guys' area. So with that, Captain Sanchez apologizes he couldn't be here. He will be at your guys' next meeting. And I'll field any questions from you guys, and I can relay any information to him and take back with me. So any questions for San Jose PD? How do you get a flock system on Sierra Road? That's a great question. I'll have to get back to you on that one. I don't know how you actually have to, I don't know the way that you guys as an association or business would have to go through that process to get it, but I can get that information and get it back to you guys so you'll have it for the next system. I just learned of Morgan Hills last week and I was very, very surprised of it. I thought it was a department only program, but it's not. They funded their own program and then they allowed Morgan Hill PD to have access to it. So I'll get back to you on that and I'll make sure I get who's ever information to email you on that. So I'll see you afterwards and get an email. You guys make my job easy. Thank you.
I'd like to thank the law enforcement for being represented tonight. It's a good information that we always get. We do have a guest speaker tonight. We are honored to have a historian, Mike Monroe. He's been here before, but he always has wonderful things to tell us about the area that we live in, or used to, before we even got here, the things that were going on. So Mike, I will bring you up and let you get started.
Can you hear me okay? Am I loud enough? Maybe I should turn this off because I have a really bad joke, so. Now, I want to thank you for inviting myself and my wife, Erin. I did promise Erin that I would have her home relatively early. She is a nurse at St. Louis Hospital in Gilroy, which means that, well, it's 4 o'clock in the morning, guys. So we're not night owls by any stretch of the imagination. So she also has a very long hook. So if I overextend my few minutes, she'll let me know, okay? And surprisingly enough, this is my first time here. So I was scheduled, and guess what happened? COVID hit. So I'm delighted to be here to talk about history. And the topic tonight is from wheat to bread. And this is why I was delighted that my wife was here, because she is a bread expert, a sourdough whisperer, okay? So do we have any bread bakers in the audience? Okay, so ask really difficult questions, but she'll answer them, okay? She's shaking her head. Before I jump into that sticky subject of dough and whatnot, a couple things happened today. I do react almost every day to some sort of little tidbit of history. So first one is that many meetings in the cities and county start with a called a land acknowledgement. So the area that we're in, all the way down to approximately Cochrane Road, where Morgan Hill starts, was now recognized as a property or a Ohlone contingent called the Muwekma. And Muwekma means people. And they extend their territory from basically Cochrane, Morgan Hill area, north up through San Francisco, Oakland, and the East Bay. when we talk about below Cochrane, south of Morgan Hill area, where we live in Gilroy, there's another tribal group of Ohlone called the Amamutsun. So the distinction is a lot of times about water. So where there's a watershed like Coyote, in the case of South County, we have Yagas and Yuvas Creek, that kind of thing. So the Native Americans were separated, let's say, by their territories with typically water supplies. So I'm not going to do a formal land acknowledgement, but it's kind of fun to understand who lived here. The other, I'm going to give a talk in a couple of weeks about a really, I should say, not say this, right? It's a very moving topic. So I'm going to talk about prunes, okay? She's cringing, okay? So there is an orchard in Morgan Hill called Andy's Orchard. Has anybody heard of Andy's Orchard? Okay. So Andy sends out a weekly newsletter, and thank goodness over the years we've been very good friends. I help Andy with his tours during the summertime. So in this case, Andy advertised in his last newsletter that his prunes were starting to become available. So has anybody here had experience with prunes in terms of picking prunes? Okay. You don't want to do that anymore? Okay. Yes. So Gilroy, Morgan Hill, many parts of the Santa Clara Valley was really big in prunes. So Andy has his prunes, which he picks fresh, okay? The story with prunes is back in the day, when the prunes were ripe, they would let them fall. In other words, the sugar content in the fruit was of such high percentage that it would just drop off the tree. And then the kids were given, I don't know how much, 10 cents a box. They go out and pick up all these prunes off the ground, okay? But that's what they used to do. Today, the technique is the trees, and mostly in the Central Valley now, the trees are mechanically harvested. So they have a machine that comes up and grabs the trunk of the tree and shakes it really hard. They have these like collection nets and that kind of thing. So they never really ever touched the dirt. So, but today I went to Andy's and I bought some prunes, or Aaron tonight asked me, is a prune a plum or is a plum a prune? This is like a question that's often asked, but the answer is it's a plum. It's a variety of plum, and this particular variety came over really early from France. The Pellier family brought over cuttings from a part, or it's probably around Bordeaux, I would say the eastern, I should say western portion of France. And with that, they started cultivating prunes for sale. It wasn't a big hit right away, but back in the 1860s, 1870s, more and more farms were starting to go into orchards, okay? And that's where I'm going to kind of pick up with this idea of what happened after the gold rush, okay? How were these guys eating? So with that, I'm going to pass out a little outline because I'm not going to be able to hit everything out. I could talk for hours on this stuff, okay? And you would probably want to go to sleep. So, am I talking too loud, or is this bothering you? Okay, let me get my outline. So, do I have any amateur historians in the group? Good historian? Okay. So today I spent a little bit of time trying to figure out what BCAC is all about. Okay, so where did that name come from? So, want to start there? Okay. So it was interesting to me. So the Berryessa name came from a young lady and her younger brother. They were born in Mexico, and their stepmother was like a witch. They couldn't stand her. So the story is that when the Anza expedition started asking for volunteer colonists to get involved with this very first expedition, 18-year-old girl and her 15-year-old brother, no parents, no other custodians, anything like that, they joined. I think that's very rare, because most of the families that came up as colonists, they either were soldiers or large families. So they started it. She got married, no children. He got married, and yes, they had children, lots of children. And for that reason, the Berryessa name even extends up to Lake Berryessa. It's all part of that clan. The other thing I learned today is that, unfortunately, they had a claim in the Almaden Quicksilver mines, which they unfortunately lost. There was no San Jose PD back in the day. So this is, Almaden Quicksilver was a prized thing for quicksilver mining and mercury and silver production. So what happened is they were basically forced off the land, and some were killed. It's not a very pleasant story. The Berryessas suffered quite a bit. They eventually had some rancho grants, including over here on the east side of San Jose. When they tried to claim the land officially from the United States, they had this map. It's called a diseño, and they submitted this hand-drawn map. Well, it didn't fly. And so when they took it to the through the legal process, they got booted out of court. And they ended up with only like 30 or 40 acres in the area. So that's how it worked back then. If you were a Californio or Native American, the Americans played pretty rough at the time. So let me pass this around. I got 30 of them here. And that, not here. That was successful. Amazing.
Susie, would you do this side? Thank you.
So a little bit about myself and my family. Again, Aaron's a nurse, 37 years at St. Louis. I'm retired, although I think of myself as very active. I do a lot of programs. So I volunteered for Santa Clara County Parks for over 30 years, California State Parks. Aaron and I have traveled to Yosemite. We've given programs in Yosemite Valley. So I enjoy talking, probably too much, but I love talking about history. So this is going to be a really deep request of all of you. I am not a bread baker, but I'm going to talk about it, okay? And I'm going to talk about it from the sense of history. If you have a technical question about how many grams to use or all that kind of thing, how many pulls you have to do for stretching out your sourdough, whatever, Aaron's got the answer, okay? So the story goes, Aaron was in France a long time ago, and she always has this very pleasant memory of staying in an apartment or a little for rent place right above a boulangerie, and the baguette smell every morning was just spectacular. Right? So she's been baking bread. So a lot of people did during COVID, right? It's the sourdough syndrome. So what I did is that I said, okay, you're into French stuff, I'm going to try Italian stuff. So we've had the opportunity to visit Italy a couple of times. Reason for it, our oldest son is military, he's Air Force, and he met his bride who's also an Air Force attorney over there. And we're very proud to say that they're both majors now. And in only a few weeks, they'll be moving back to Monterey. He's going to go into Naval Postgraduate School. And we have one other son who is in med school. He's 2.5 years now, almost 3 years. He's in Phoenix, so they're doing clinical rotations in Phoenix. So I took the challenge. I said, I'm going to try to teach myself how to make bread. Well, when I do stuff like this, I go way overboard. I mean, way, way overboard. And so I'm going to say, I'm going to figure out the history of wheat and flour and understand all these different types of flours and stuff like that. So I have a binder. I collect all this stuff and I keep all this information and I try to use it when I'm actually physically doing like the bread baking in this case, so I can get a sense of how much effort does this require. You know, I could go to the store and buy a loaf of bread, right? But there's a lot to it. So what I started to do is I started collecting little trivia things. So I have my Italian bread book. I have my Italian bread board, okay? This happens to be a French tea towel with breads all over the place. So in other words, I really dive deep in these things. So sometimes I start with a small binder and I have to graduate to the big binder. Thank goodness I'm not going to go through this whole thing, but it's kind of fun. So please ask questions, all right? Or I'll ask you questions. Does anybody know where the first origins of wheat came from? This is a long time ago world history question. I'm sorry? Almost. It's called the Fertile Crescent. So this is Syria, Turkey, northern Iran. Wheat is a grass, okay? And that's where the foundational varieties of wheat came from. And what was happening then as trade started, it got through Europe and then to England. And then when the Spanish came over, they're colonizing South America and Middle America, Central America, they're bringing food crops over. And the wheat that they brought into Mexico, they brought up the missionaries in 1769. That's the Portola expedition. Soon thereafter, Father Sarah comes up and the missions are starting. And they're bringing their, let's say, orange trees, and olive trees, grapevine, everything coming into the mission system, including wheat. And the variety of wheat is called Sonoran white wheat. And what I particularly latched onto was after the gold rush started, I mean, the population of California was tiny, 1849, 1848. You know, maybe foreign-born or let's say the California population, maybe 7,000 or 8,000 at the most. Native American population, they figure about 150,000 at the time, but not very many, certainly not very many what we call foreign-born people. So then I went askew, took another tangent. I said, okay, well, did the Native Americans have wheat? And the answer is kind of, sort of, okay? So there are grasses that they harvested. Are they technically in the same family as the wheat coming out of the Fertile Crescent, Europe, that kind of thing? The answer is no. So chia is a seed that is grown native here. Wild rye is grown here, and they did harvest these things, and they did process them like wheat. In other words, they ground them, and they would prepare them as like an oatmeal or like a pancake type of product. So when Portola is coming up in 1769 and they're starving in the Santa Cruz area, the Native Americans brought them little cakes, pinole, made from chia seeds. And that really helped them. Native Americans back at the outset were very helpful to the Spanish explorers. Going through the Californios again, the mission system, they're planting wheat. The ranchos are planting some wheat. The major part of the economy back in those times was cattle. And they were harvesting cattle for their hides and for their tallow to make soap. And they would slaughter them just to have something to eat. But they were not big-time agriculturalists. After the mission system collapsed, the ranchos were kind of, they were subsistence. Americans come in, people from Chile come in, from Peru, all around the world, Chinese, everybody's coming to California looking for gold. Well, we got lots of animals that they're shooting at and butchering Spanish cattle, but what are they doing for bread? So where I pick up on this now is that, ta-da, Santa Clara Valley, big time wheat production, 1850s, 1860s, starts diminishing in the 1870s. When the Transcontinental Railroad starts coming over, transportation gets better. The Santa Clara Valley was the #1 producer of wheat in California, and the second in overall production behind the state of Minnesota. This is big time. Next step is Santa Clara Valley overplants some wheat, and they decide that there are better, more profitable crops to grow. So we get more of the prunes, apricots, lots of fruit trees. Where does the wheat go? It goes into the Central Valley. Big, big time. So I'm doing this too fast, I know, but. So in Gilroy, there's a section called Redwood Retreat. And it's on the, it would be on the western shoulder of, eastern shoulder of Mount Madonna. Redwood Retreat was an area where, I'll say I won't say liberal-minded people, but Fanny Stevenson, the widow of Robert Louis Stevenson, bought some property out there. And she invited one of her friends who knew her husband. His name was Jack Norris, Frank Norris. Frank Norris was a prolific author for just a very few years. He lived primarily in the San Francisco area, but when he traveled to see his friend Fanny Stevenson, he said, I'm gonna get a little bungalow down here. And he then purchased a little bit of land, built a little log cabin with the intention of moving in. Unfortunately, he had a bout of appendicitis, and this is his early 30s, and died of an infection. Married with one young child. Before, though, that unfortunate circumstance, he did write several books. One of them is known as The Octopus. This is the Muckraker series. So Frank Norris was a muckraker. And what he was doing, he was writing novels, short stories about people who were basically businesses who were taking advantage of the situation, had a lot of economic power. So he was beating up in The Octopus on the railroads. So Southern Pacific, lots of land, lots of money, big guys in government. And so he wrote The Octopus, followed by a story called The Pit. And the final one in the trilogy was going to be called The Wolf. He only got 2 of the 3 published though before he died.
The story of the octopus is Southern Pacific Railroad and the settlers in the Central Valley had a dispute about land claims. And he unfortunately erupted into violence. So there is a historic marker close to Hanford where there was a shootout. 8 people were killed, and it's called Muscle Shoal. And then Frank Norris built that into his stories about the corruption and the economic power that the railroads were trying to impose upon the local citizens. Okay, this is lots of history, right? I'm gonna get into the bread baking part. Okay. Okay, who's following along that outline? Let's see where I'm at here. Oh, I should probably talk about the sense of place idea. The reason I'm doing this is that Aaron and I have only lived in Gilrest our entire married life. So when we moved to Gilroy, I kind of plunged in and I said, I'm going to learn everything I can about the area, all the historical aspects of it, mostly the landscapes. So I'm really keen on creeks and mountains, and valley floors, and what they were growing, what they were trying to do. Because I really value that concept called sense of place. And it's the reason I volunteer for the Parks Department and stuff like that. Maybe someone else will kind of jump into that. Question as always, is anybody interested in history? This is the hard part. So if you could visit some small town museums or historical societies, they're basically barely hanging on. And how do you engage the next generation for continuing the traditions, continuing that heritage? That's a tough one, okay? So my song and dance routines are very self-effective. So thank you for listening to that. So next one was a tangled history for me. I jump into all kinds of things. So today was prunes, right? Or berries. Every day something pops up. And sometimes a museum will send a question, or I read something, Andy sends a newsletter, or talking to him or something like that. It's just a lot of fun. And then I plunge into, I'm gonna make Italian bread, right? So, domesticated wheat, kind of a funny term. What does that mean? What is domesticated wheat? Well, before we, people were around, we, of course, grew wild, right? And back in the day, 10,000 years ago, let's say, it was partially harvestable, but a lot of it just basically fell over. And it wasn't cultivated by people. What happened over time is that humans decided which varieties of wheat they liked the best, and they started planting those. So that's the process of domestication. So it's like cattle. What kind of cows give the most milk? Or let's say, is Angus beef the best beef, this kind of thing. So we're learning over time how to use plants, animals, to domesticate them for our benefit. And over time, there are certain varieties of wheat that have come into traditional use. And the wild ones, they still grow, but today, most of the wheat is very few varieties, very heavily processed, that kind of thing. So I talk about the white Sonora wheat. It is still grown, and it's now recognized as one of those varieties in the slow food movement. So slow food movement came out of Europe, and they're designating particular types of agricultural endeavors, animals and plants, that we should try to save those genetically diversified plants or animals. So Sonora wheat is one of them. I have a whole bunch of stuff on comments from people back in the day saying about observing the vast wheat fields that came from San Jose to Gilroy. It's surprising. When I did a lot of homework, ongoing homework, it's like, well, certainly they would use all that land for cattle, right? No. They found out that cows were fine, but they put them up in the hills and they started growing things because there's much more money to have the gold miners up there paying you, $10 a pound for wheat or something like that. So Gilroy, Morgan Hill, South San Jose, big, vast wheat fields. They overplanted, the soil took a hit, they moved over to the Central Valley. Aaron and I, we went to Santa Clara University, that's my alma mater. We were there on, was it Sunday? Saturday. And we went up to Santa Clara to see Aaron's mom. And I said, let's divert our travel to the mission. So I'm looking for grinding stones. That's a really fun day, guys. It works wonders. Go to a girl, say, let's go look for grinding stones. And unfortunately, I had read where they were, supposedly, but I couldn't find them. So I said, okay, well, I'll try another location. I'll call somebody, I'll figure that out. So the reason I bring it up is that to process wheat, you could either use stones to grind them, or more modern techniques, they use rollers, big heavy rollers. And so a company like Bob Dread Mill, King Arthur, typically they're using some sort of stone. In the case of where we live in Gilroy, right out in front of the museum, are two large grinding stones. And they came from a property on Pacheco Pass. They were in the ground, and the farmer knew where they were. And he said, well, someday someone's going to run over this with a tractor. So he donated the grinding stones to the museum. But they're really cool. They're a very hard rock, typically either granite or volcanic. There's lots of sandstone in the Gilroy area. The Indians, when they would grind their acorns and seeds in sandstone, you get a lot of sandstone in your meal, right? So they always had that heat. So you always want a really hard material to grind. So we're fortunate in Gilroy to have some vintage, say mid-1800s grinding stones. They probably came over from Europe when the missions were developing them. The missions used either Indian power or animal power. So they had a base wheel and then a top wheel, pour the grain right into the top in a circular motion. They either have a donkey going round and round in circles, or the Indians would have to push these things around. Very, very time consuming, but supposedly, I have a newspaper account where some wheat was sent from South San Jose to a mill in Gilroy because they had the mill. So in other words, whoever had the processing, that's where they would send the product. One of the earliest mills and building that's still standing is in South San Jose. Ever heard of Rancho Laguna Seca? Okay. Mr. Alvarez, who had held that rancho for a while, built a building for water-powered grist mill, and it's still standing. You can't get there from here because the county has it, and it's used for another facility. So I could look at it on pictures with beautiful chain links surrounding it. I haven't been able to ever get it close. By 1890, California's second largest wheat producing state. Talking about Frank Norris. Heirloom, ancient, heritage, all those kinds of words. They all mean something unique, but they're all pretty close, okay? Heirloom tomatoes, for example. What's an heirloom tomato? Well, it's typically something that's been passed down. Does it mean that it hasn't been improved or, anything ever done to it? No. It always means that they're open pollinated. So the wheat is a tomato or squash, whatever it is, has a chance, if they're grown in a diverse environment, to get the very, very best characteristics. So someone says, well, this is a delicious tomato. Well, it came from my field because I had other varieties of tomatoes, and guess what? We have a new variety here. And there's lots of effort to preserve those hybridized seeds. So. Wheat berries, I'm going really fast here. Wheat berries, so the stalk of wheatgrass is grown, and it used to be that they would grow really tall. There's a song out there that says, amber waves of grain. There's a line in that song. That's what it used to be. You would go into the Midwest and you'd have amber waves of grain blowing in the wind. Not anymore, because they have hybridized over time to have the wheat become shorter, a bit more tougher, sturdier stalk to it. And they also have produced wheat that can have more cycles, more plantings per year. So the wheat we have today has changed quite a bit. The heirloom stuff is still out there, and I brought a couple of things. Back on the table, by chance, I was at the grocery store working out here, and I did not have a cookie attack. I was on the cereal aisle, right? I turned around, and there's this box, and it says, einkorn cookies. I said, I never turned out a cookie, right? Einkorn is a variety of wheat that would be considered an ancient wheat, so they have dated it through genetic protocols, 7,000 or 8,000 years in age. It has slowly evolved over time. Emer is another one of these grains. So cookies back there. I brought some flour. I'm still at the stage where I'm not confident in my baking ability yet. This will come later, okay? Hopefully sometime this decade. But it's an ancient flour. It doesn't have as much protein. So if you're a bread baker, you want a bread that has a protein content that allows the gluten to develop and you have the rise effect, all that kind of thing. This one, you typically have to blend. So I would blend this with a bread flour of some sort. That's what I'm gonna do. But if you just bake with this, you're gonna get a dense loaf, okay? Most of the time, the more heritage grains are used for pasta, so durum wheat or semolina. Emer, spelt, kamut, these are all old varieties of wheat. Typically, you don't find them in your bags of flour at the store. I'm going to pick on gold medal for a minute, okay? Because I'm going to jump to enriched. Gold medal flour is a great name, right? But if you pick up a bag of gold medal all-purpose flour, you'll see that it's been enriched and it's been bleached. So what does that mean? Well, most wheat that we use day to day comes from a variety called red wheat. It's not perfectly white. So if you want to have a white color, which was, consider the perfection of what wheat was supposed to look like, they'd have to bleach it with chemicals. So in the process of getting gold medal into the bag, they would separate the seed head of the wheat. So that's the germ, endosperm, and bran. So it's 3 components to the seed. So what you're doing is you're only going to mill, they were only milling the endosperm part, the starchy part, and all the nutritional, or much of the nutritional values left that. The nutritional parts of wheat are in the bran and in the germ. So when you go to the store, you buy wheat germ, right? It's saying something to me. But not to pick on gold medal, because they do sell other products. Protein content's really important. King Arthur is one of the very few that put right on the bag 12.7 bread flour. Bob's Red Mill does not do that. It's pretty close, but because they're blending more, they can't guarantee a specific percentage. So white wheat, red wheat, spring wheat, winter wheat, enriched wheat, unbleached, bleached wheat. I mean, there's all these different things, okay? And what I'm going to do is try to take all this stuff in my binder and actually produce a loaf of bread now. So, but it's going to be like a focaccia or a ciabatta, something like that. I have to get approval to use the oven from my wife. So let me stop there, because I can go on too long. It's almost 8:30, so I promised Aaron we'd be home by 8:30. So any questions? I love talking history. You can ask me anything about South County. Anything below Bailey down to the Pajaro River, I really feel pretty comfortable in answering. Again, it's fun. I really enjoy trying to understand what happens. Well, we had a flood in Gilroy, right? Part of the Highway 101 was closed. It's on the news. Why was that? What happened there? Well, the answer is that they channelized a creek to go underneath the freeway into a very small culvert, which quickly got plugged. So Caltrans recognizes it, but we have heavy rains like that. Okay. So when I see that, I say, oh, that's Gavilan Creek. And I know what's happening. And I can say, okay, this is what caused that. I could also talk about fish, Are there still steelhead fish running in the creeks and stuff like that? So please ask me a question.
Are there any steelheads?
Can I tell you that the steelhead runs in Santa Clara County are almost non-existent for a variety of reasons. And warm water temperatures, drought, there's a whole bunch of things. A lot of illegal dumping. So it's like you're talking to the sheriff. Yeah, we have major issues with pollution, so. Okay, Linda, get the hook. All right.
So much fun. I mean, there's so much to know. I never knew I've been there.
Well, it's actually in the Berryessa family, so I'm looking it up, and they're growing wheat. And they have orchards, and they got wheat. It was whatever they could do to make money to survive. So, okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Those are hard ones to do.
Okay. I'll have you open this.
I'm going to pack up and I'll put this table back and
Okay, quickly, any elected officials here, Tim, are you going to speak about Alex Lee or no? Not yet.
Wait, why don't I give a report next month?
Oh.
And let you know the bills were signed.
Okay, cool. David, you're here, do you have anything?
I'll just say that if you'd like to find out more about what's going on, come by the farmer's market on Saturday. I have a booth there from 9 to noon over at Piedmont Middle School, so stop by and say hello.
Okay, very nice, thank you. And Richard Santos, you had something for us?
Thank you, Linda. If you were born and raised in San Jose, we're actually known as the fruit pickers.
Yeah.
You're my age, and remember that. But anyway, I was here a couple of weeks ago at the celebration of the ceremony of 50 years of Berryessa Citizen Advisory Council, and I didn't have a plaque with me, but I wanted to make sure I get one. So, a lot of people can recognize everybody from Al Garza to Bill Hughes, Bob and Lonnie Groves, Marla, who just turned 90. Happy birthday. And Ty Graves, Mike Walker, wonderful to live a lot. But what it's all about is this, making Berryessa a better place to live because we have a voice.
All right. Oh, and we have one more person. Oh, two, actually. Roxanne, you want to say anything?
No, we're all good. We had a very positive school opening. So if you have any questions, always feel free to speak.
Great. And we have one more. It's a San Jose Seniors Commission. Lilia Hancock has been appointed to that position, and she'd like to say a few words. But I'll find you again.
All right, very quick, because I know everybody wants to get going. Thank you, David. I just wanted to thank David. He appointed me for the Senior Council for District 4. So what I've been doing the past month is going to different community centers and just getting a feel for how things are run, because there's a lot of duplication of services available, but a lot of people aren't aware of all the services that are available. A lot of people want to actually get things hard copy. They don't go on the internet. They don't like to search for the different classes available, but all the classes in all the county is available to all of you. If you're over 50, there is so many resources available. A lot of people don't feel comfortable coming to partake in the senior meals, but not only are there meals here, there's community meals being held at several churches that are free. There's community sponsors from like Catholic Charities, and the senior resource fair that we had sponsored by the senator last week was incredible, and yet the attendance was a little low. So we need people to spread the word, because we're doing a lot of good things in various. Linda has been great over the past 30-something plus years here, and we need to support, because guess what? If you don't support these types of things, the fundings, may be looked at. There's money has to go somewhere and come from somewhere, so I encourage everyone to support. Thank you. Lilia, it was a monthly report, but the senator's senior information thing on Saturday was incredible. Was it Saturday or Friday? Friday. And it's amazing how many resources are out there. I had no idea. It's just amazing. So we've got to spread that word around. All right, how many of these am I picking? I'm picking 11. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I could have gone the other way, just subtracted 2. All right, so these are for prizes. Susan said she had prizes. So it's 2, 9, 4, 5, 1, 3.
Where's the prize?
The envelope.
Oh, that's what
Actually,
they
born
said.
on the 13th, so I always say the 13th is a lucky number.
Yes.
There's a prize somewhere. They're right here. Oh, maybe I'm right here. There's small prizes, so thank you.
And let's see. I think all of it. 219 is all the same. 29145. So it's 06, 506, the last three numbers. 506. 506. Oh, all right. Get it. Here you go. Okay. And 505. 505. 505. Told you. And 511. 511. 511. Come on, is anybody awake? 511. Oh, David. Oh. Nobody from, no, 511. 507. 507. All right. Five, 1, 5. 5, 1, 5. All right. Five oh six. 506. 506. Oh. Okay. Did I say 515? Did I say that already? 515. 515. Did I say that? Oh, that's what you said. 504. 504. See, if you stay up long enough, you get a prize. 512. 512. 512. Okay. 510.
That's me.
510.
Oh, do you want to stay there and I'll get it? Oh, no. Thank you.
There you go. Happy birthday. Yeah. Okay. 504. Did I call that before? 504. 509. Oops. Yeah. 516. 516. 516. Oh, okay. I can get it. Okay. 508. 509. I should go a little faster. 509. 509. 509. 514. 514. Okay. Next month, the community center is not open because it's a national holiday. Used to be Columbus Day, but not anymore. But so we're gonna do our BCAC meeting via Zoom for all of us to be able to participate. And we do have a board meeting on September 18th, which is next Monday, for all of our board members. We need volunteers for cookies for November meetings, so if you can do that, then let's see it. Cool. All right, there you go. I remember to do something. All right, thank you so much. I'm sorry it ran kind of late, but we started a little late, but thanks to the Boy Scouts at St. Victor's and all of you for coming tonight. I appreciate it. Very good. All right, you are dismissed.
Yeah, so, that's what I wanted to talk, and then I'm like, wait, we're gonna be next week.
Yeah, because I think.
I'm surprised you looked over, you guys didn't start funding. Yeah, I mean, you can make it 500. You get a couple $500 ones too.
Yeah, we're waiting for those. Yeah, 1500.
Yeah, can't argue with that.